So tell us, Beth, like what exactly is in the amendment that could possibly be on the ballot?
Well, it completely abolishes property tax.
Ohio ranks as the 7th most expensive state in terms of property taxes. The average Ohio homeowner now pays $3,800 a year, and that's only going up. The skyrocketing property taxes are contributing to homelessness and certainly kicking people out of their homes that normally would remain if it wasn't for the rising property tax bill. But soon, that may change. A growing movement here in Ohio says enough, led by Beth, Blackmarr, and the Citizens for Property Tax Reform. There's a constitutional amendment that could be headed for November's ballot that would eliminate property tax in Ohio. It's bold, it's controversial, and it might just change Ohio real estate forever. Today, we're going straight to the source, so let's find out what this amendment really means and whether it's finally time for Ohio homeowners to catch a break. Beth, how you doing today? Welcome to the Housing Nerd.
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you took some time to talk to us. So let's start off. Beth, give me your personal story. What inspired you to launch this amendment and this movement, and why now?
Let me just say, when I got my reevaluation last year for my home, and mind you, I almost threw it in the garbage. I thought it was junk mail. And something told me to just take another look. Just look, something caught my eye. And I before I just was ready to pitch it into recycle, I pulled it back up and I'm going, my God, that's from the county. And I opened it up and I'm going, I almost hit the floor. My house they wanted to take my house value. I'm in a 1911. Okay, let me start with this. I'm in a 1911 2-bedroom, all original bungalow in Lakewood, Ohio, right? Cracks, blemishes and all, So I opened up my reevaluation and hit the floor. I couldn't believe it. It went from 188,000 to 299,000. That was a 51.9% increase over the last increase. Now, mind you, when I bought this house, I bought it for 76,000. So over the last, say, decade, it went from 88, snuck up a little bit, and then it was just like boom, boom over the last, 7 years. It's just like boom, boom. And I just couldn't believe it. So I said, well, this is going to get expensive because I'm sort of doing the math in my head and I'm like, okay, my mortgage payment's going to go up roughly $120 a month if I do the math here. That is not doable. I'm on a fixed income. We can't have it. So while I'm in this panic, called the county. What do I do? And basically they said, you can contest it informally, and get, here's how to do it. You can get comparables and an appraiser and all that thing. So I became even more panicked. And I decided, okay, fortunately, I had a little extra money. I said, you know what? I'm going to get a certified appraiser like they requested. I did that. Meanwhile, while I'm going through all this, I was on social media and just happened to glimpse someone who had posted on a local board, a local Facebook page, SOS, Save Our Seniors. And they were having a meeting. So I went to the meeting. It was about property tax. I'm going to the meeting. So I went and I'm like, I liked what I heard. And they said, we're looking for volunteers. We need people on a steering committee. So I said, I'm in because they have made me angry. This has made me angry. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'll help. And so, we started working together and rebranded to Citizens for Property Tax Reform. And by the way, if anybody wants to find us, we're at reformpropertytax.com. Real easy, reformpropertytax.com. So we rebranded to Citizens for Property Tax Reform and expanded out from Cuyahoga County all the way across Ohio, because this isn't just my county. You're in Licking County. This is a Ohio problem, not a Cuyahoga County problem. I mean, there's still stuff on our website that says Cuyahoga County on it because that's where we started. But this thing has grown exponentially. So the most important part of this organization is that, when one person goes to a legislator, it's great. We want that. That's called activism. Get a hold of your rep, get a hold of your state senator. Your state rep, state senator, get a hold of them. Call them. Send them letters. Let them know how you feel. Be kind, be nice, but let them know that this tax thing is a problem for you. But But when we're talking to our county representatives, we're talking to our state representatives, one person, it's easy to kind of, move along. There's power in number. And that's why this organization is important. Let me go back to just a moment. I'm going to go back to when I talked to my local, I called the city government because I said, maybe they could do something to help their citizens. I mean, seniors, we're anchor homeowners here. We've been here for a long time. We kind of keep everything in place. We keep our yards in good shape and we make the neighborhood look nice. And it's good to have long-term homeowners. When you got long-term homeowners, you've got a stable neighborhood, period. So I'm like, well, that should be an incentive for our mayor and city council to maybe want to back us, go to bat for us. Basically, what I heard back was, in a nutshell, well, if you can't afford it, maybe you might want to think about moving. And that made me madder because that is not the answer. And so, with this organization, we have reached out to legislators and tried to get some sort of answers. There are legislators that have been trying to work on this. There's been committees and nothing substantial has been done to address the problem of these skyrocketing valuations and tax after tax after tax and levy after levy after levy. It just, when you take those taxes in and of themselves and the levies that go on them, it's not so painful unless you've doubled and tripled home values. Then it gets really painful and people start paying attention. So basically, they should have addressed this quite some time ago. However, in my humble opinion, and I could be wrong, but it's my observation that they built with this property tax law, they built sort of a Jenga tower of law. And when the legislators are trying to address one thing, if you pull that block out, certain other things fall down. So that's been the problem all along. We at Citizens for Property Tax Reform are bound and determined we are going to see to it that property tax in the state of Ohio is reformed. Now, meanwhile, while we were organizing and getting ourselves out there and talking to legislators, a committee formed from a couple other groups, small groups, and they're called the Committee to Eliminate Ohio Property Taxes. And they are the ones that decided to put forward and did all the work, all the footwork to put together this ballot initiative, okay? And Citizens for Property Tax Reform is backing the ballot initiative, okay? So that's how we got to this point because this is an action of last resort, right? I mean, we have not been able to really get much accomplished. The legislators have tried. We've gotten basically crumbs. Maybe not even that, So this action of last resort seems to have gotten the legislators moving a bit because they're talking about it. There's I'm starting to hear some stuff. So those are all good things because we are for property tax reform, period. That's what we do. That's the whole purpose of our organization.
So it sounds like you tried to have some reform or to get movement on reform that didn't have any legs or you weren't getting the recognition for it. And so, like you said, you went to the end solution. Like you said, it was the last resort, right? But that's the elimination of property tax, correct? In this amendment that we could possibly vote on in Ohio, we could possibly vote on this thing in November if you get enough signatures, right?
Well, we're not looking for recognition as an organization. We're looking for recognition of the problem. And I think now they recognize the problem.
But what's coming on the ballot is the elimination of property tax, right? Like it's basically puts it in there and says, hey, well, so tell us, Beth, like what exactly is in the amendment that could possibly be on the ballot?
Well, it completely abolishes property tax. I mean, the idea is that we get enough signatures to get this put on the ballot and then let the voters decide. Right now, we're just getting signatures to get this put on the ballot. Now, a signature is not a vote. A signature is just saying, hey, you know what? I want people to be able to look at this and decide for themselves, right? The other thing is there's already mechanisms in the Ohio Revised Code to replace property tax with various functions. We have, some cities across Ohio are already using what's called an SDIT, which is a school district income tax. So they buffer the property tax burden with some additional income tax for their city. And it helps offset the burden, a little bit for their homeowners and building owners. So that's kind of, when we say we're going to get rid of property tax, well, Not exactly. I mean, we're going to move it to another. What it does basically is spread the pain. The idea is to spread the pain because right now the burden is borne by 30 to 35% of Ohio residents. That's not entirely fair. I mean, we're the ones, and we've got abatements that go on for years and years. There's TIFs that go on for years. Abatements can go anywhere from 10 to 30 years. TIFs can go on anywhere from 10 to 60 years of not paying or only paying a percentage of property tax. So, we can't bear the entire burden and this is not sustainable. And most importantly, we cannot be putting senior citizens out in the street. We cannot do it. You can't have displaced senior citizens. And that's what's happening now.
One of the counter arguments to property tax elimination or even reform in a way is that, hey, where are we going to get the money from for the schools and for police and firefighters and libraries and all that stuff? Everything that is paid by property tax now. But what you're saying is, hey, if we go to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we go to an income model where it's income tax based, I would assume then that folks on fixed incomes, a lot of senior citizens, that would alleviate their tax burden because they may not be bringing in as much income as somebody who has two earners in the household and has a kid in the school system. They're obviously, I guess in a way, obligated to pay more tax because they're maybe using it versus a senior citizen who may not be using it and on a fixed income who, through no fault of their own, their value on their house went from $79,000 to $299,000, of which they haven't realized any benefit of that because they don't want to move. Or maybe they do, but at this point, they haven't realized any benefit. So it's really taxing unrealized. And now you're shifting that to say, well, if you make more money, you're going to pay more tax based on that income, potentially as a solution for replacing that. Is that right?
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, or a hybrid. I mean, if you spend more money if you buy more stuff, if you did a sales tax model, then, or a hybrid of, I mean, there's a lot of ways that this can be done. We've actually got models. It is very doable. We've actually got models of this. It's very doable. And again, it's already built into the Ohio Revised Code. This isn't something that they'll have to reinvent the wheel for. Well, the other thing is that, we're not legislators. We have to prepare for, we have to know what we're talking about, but we aren't the legislators at the end of the day. And so we have to depend on these legislators to come up with something to make this work. That's what they do. That's our hope.
Right. Yeah. Well, you mentioned tax abatement, and something that I'm very familiar with is the $2.6 billion that Ohio is giving Intel over the next 30 years to build a microchip facility that it's 10 minutes from where I live. And this is a massive project that's $20 billion in investment. And it's the largest tax abatement Ohio has ever provided. And it seems unfair, I guess, lack of a better term. And just it seems ridiculous to give a corporation like Intel the tax break of that magnitude while the senior citizens around or those on a fixed income or even just normal homeowners, investors like me, and even first-time home buyers who want to buy in Licking County, as an example, around that plant, they're going to be taxed to the hilt because the property taxes there in that community are going through the roof because of this massive gigafactory being built. So to your point, there's a lot of tax abatement that goes on that doesn't necessarily help the people that need it most, maybe.
That's a fact. And here's the I guess the problem I have with these abatements. I like that there's incentives to bring industry into our areas and back into Ohio because, back in the 80s, it was like this mass exodus of manufacturing and so on that left. But here's the problem. We're not the only state that's willing to do this. I mean, we basically give away the farm to lure these companies. We give away the farm. And the problem with that is that if you do the math now, as opposed to 30 years ago when this kind of abatements and incentives stuff started, now when you do the math doesn't math anymore. We're going on the same old ideas of, okay, so we're going to put a factory in here It's going to bring X number of people to the area. We're going to, that's going to result in X amount of revenue in taxes and X amount of revenue to our business owners and on and on and on and on. So they do this flow chart of what it's going to do. The problem is that in reality, that just doesn't work out that way. We have, and I'm, again, this is a little controversial for me to say. I hope I'm not stepping in it here. But, Brown Stadium, for example, we are coughing up on the order of $600 million of what ultimately is taxpayer money, right? They're taking it from taxes, they're going to grab it from here, grab it from there, and other promises along the way that have been made on top of that $600 million to basically give to billionaires. So we are the word for this is corporate welfare. So, but why we do it is because of incentives. That's why we do it. Incentives to have these businesses here because we earn revenues, tax money, et cetera, on this particular thing. However, when you've got a situation like the Browns that had 10 games at home last year, how is that holding up its end of the bargain in the way of revenues? And so that's what we're running into when we give away the farm to these different companies. And again, we want investment in Ohio. We want investment. But when we're giving away the farm, the math just ain't mathing. So, and as you said, the burden is borne by the homeowners and the landlords. And here's another thing before I forget. Renters don't often think about the fact that they pay property tax. Renters pay property tax. Rents have gone through the roof because of the property tax explosion. At least here in Cuyahoga County, I'm sure it is much like this across Ohio. So renters have a stake in this because they are paying for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just to wrap up the tax abatement thing, I agree. It's awesome that a company like Intel is coming into a community like Licking County. But when you say we gave away the farm, it's like literal and figuratively, because not only did we give them tax abatement, but the farmland is completely gone. Now, there has to be if there's going to be a factory, it has to happen somewhere. So it's like, well, if there's got to be some place that that you build the thing. So somebody's going to have their land removed. That's obviously something that this tax amendment would do is, hey, clear the way that even if you're Joe Schmo homeowner who owns their house that was built in 1910, you're still going to get the break just like a large corporation would. At least that's right. what I think that on the, that's what I see from it, which is great. And then to your point on renters, yes, I'm getting ready. It's, what is it? It's May now, end of May. Well, it's going to be mid-June for some of them, and then July for some of them on the buildings I own. Those days I pay those taxes are not great days because it's a complete throwaway, literally a throwaway. And that is difficult to swallow. And because of that, you're right, I have to raise rents more so than maybe I would have normally. So I hope that landlords, if they got this break, would lower rents. I think they would. Maybe
I think many would. Let me touch back on those abatements real quick, because we do need those incentives for business. We want industry in Ohio. We want to bring business back to Ohio. There are ways to still provide, if you eliminated property tax, there are still ways to provide incentives for industry to come to Ohio. I wanted to add that before we move on. I'm sorry.
The other thing I think that people don't realize, or maybe they do, but they don't think it's a big deal until you're actually somebody who has to do it, is if you're somebody who wants to buy a house now, especially your first home, and you're like, look, I don't need anything extravagant. I just need a home. Like I'll take a basic home that 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath in a little neighborhood. And when I started in real estate just 7.5 years ago, it was very possible. Like it was pretty, you could find a home around here for $130,000. But when I looked up the Ohio, and I pay attention to a lot of this data, but when you think about the increase in property values in Ohio, it has literally gone parabolic. So like when you think about it from a US standpoint, it's around 46% over the last 5 years, homes have increased, median home price, according to Zillow values. In Ohio, it's about 67%, 147 to 220. So like that same person who wanted to buy that small house is priced out. And a big part of that are the taxes. A big part of that, are the property taxes, and the fact that that's an addition to their monthly payment that they just can't stomach. So,
right. And listen check this out.
Yeah.
If there are seniors, and I'll get back to this other part in just a minute. There are seniors that are now paying more in property tax if you divide it up by month than they paid for their original mortgage. I mean, that's just really unbelievable. And when you think about young people starting out today, here's the other thing that's happening right now. Many people don't realize they didn't pay any attention to their valuations changing. They didn't. They thought it was junk mail, pitched it. They didn't pay any attention. But guess what? Their escrow adjustments are coming right now. So they're opening their mail and they're seeing, holy cow, my mortgage payment is going up by $100 or $200, and my escrow account's in shortfall because they paid the property tax bill out of it 2 months ago. So now my mortgage payment is going up. That's the next thing. I mean, this isn't just seniors. It's everybody. And, why would anyone buy a home right now? I mean, it's got to be a struggle. It is a struggle for kids, for young people to buy a home. It's just, the American dream is dwindling. I mean, it's dwindling because we're just being taxed to death,
Yeah.
We really are. I mean, there's still the incentive, if you make enough money to use it as a write-off against your annual income, that's still a good deal. If it doesn't make that much of a difference for you, where's your incentive? We've got to get the American dream back.
When you mention elderly folks or just people who maybe even don't have a mortgage, have paid off their mortgage, their taxes and insurance have become as much as their payment, their original mortgage payment. I know my father is in that situation now where he called me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago and was like, my mortgage payment his house is almost paid off, but it doesn't matter because now his taxes have gone up, exponentially. And you're right, it creates a shortfall in the escrow. And the other thing I see, Beth, is I see people, current homeowners, who ignore, they throw away their mortgage statement because they're like, oh, it's on an automatic payment. What does it matter? It's fixed, right? It's fixed.
They're not paying attention.
But then they get a call from the mortgage servicer saying, hey, you're late on your mortgage. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, yes. You didn't, it went up $75 a month or $100 a month. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And then, the problem is the kind of the fallacy is that if you get a 30-year fixed mortgage, that payment doesn't change. That narrative it's kind of been debunked now because with rising property taxes, your payment could definitely change. I'm seeing a lot of foreclosures from taxes right now. I'm seeing it.
That's the thing. Well, you can contest your tax. You can do an informal, you can do a formal, and oops, it's already gone as of March 31st. And, I've talked to people in tears. They're in their home in a wheelchair. They don't have access to internet. I just can't understand how we can be doing this to people, and they can't pay their property taxes. I don't understand how we can do that. We cannot be putting people out of their homes. We just can't. We can't. It's got to stop. Right. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's a few assist programs for people that are in arrears in our county, but there's a limited amount of money to deal with that. And it's like, right. Why should we be having to do that? There was legislation put forward by Tristan Rader, who was my representative. I like him, nice guy. But the legislation he put forward, the proposal he made was that if you couldn't pay the property tax, it would just kind of go and it would just be pushed back. You wouldn't lose your home. It would just be pushed back, and it would accumulate, but you wouldn't be put out of your home. And it's like, well, that's fine, but that's like this god-awful reverse mortgage. I mean, that's like the reverse mortgage from hell. You still owe the money. So, at the end of the day, you still don't get that to be able to pass your home down to your kid. I mean, it's really it's tough to fix this monster the way it sits. I want people to know that if they are interested in our movement, to please hop on to reformpropertytax.com, put your email address in, put your name in, and sign up with us. We need people who we need everybody who's interested, regardless of, we are nonpartisan, doesn't matter. And if you're interested in circulating petitions, you'll get a welcome letter. And if you're interested in helping us circulate petitions, yay, we need all the help we can get. And if you're not, that's fine too. Be a member, listen to our radio show. We have 7:00 on Tuesday nights. We have a radio show it's only 30 minutes. and you can hop into our website and listen live from there. But yeah, get on to reformpropertytax.com.
I'm going to put all the links for this in the description in the video, so it'll be easy to access. And yeah, Beth, listen, this has been fantastic. Like, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about property taxes. I think it's something, like you said, everybody deals with, even if you're a renter. And I think this has helped a lot. It's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds. And I mean, the fact that you're taking the bull by the horns as a concerned citizen I think is awesome. Like, it really shows that, you know, if you want something changed or you want something done, if you get off your rear and go do it, you can make a difference. So that's inspiring, to say the least. I know I'm inspired from talking to you.
Well, it's all the work of a lot of people. You know, it takes people to make this movement work. And that's how you make real change, is to gather people together. And we are the very definition of grassroots. It doesn't get any more grassroots than this. We don't have any $1 million backers. We don't have any money backers. We're all working out of our pockets. I'm buying cases of paper, you know what I mean, and getting things out. It is the very definition of grassroots, really.
Yeah. So how many signatures do you have right now?
We don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
We don't know until we get them back and scan them.
Okay.
Yeah. And they all have to be original.
Okay. And your deadline is when?
Well, our goal is July 1st.
Okay.
That's our goal. We have to have 600,000 signatures. We actually only need like 413,000, but you have to get a cushion in there because some of them will be rejected for one reason or another. You never know. It's a mass scam when they get them down to Columbus. So you have to have enough in there so that you actually meet the requirements, right? So, we won't know until we get them scanned in and get them tallied. But,
got it.
If our target is, July 1st, because that's going to get us on the November ballot. If we don't make it by then, we can still keep collecting signatures and we're still good to go for the May ballot next year.
So should I so I can plan on next year not having to pay my property taxes? One of the things you said that I think is really important, I don't think a lot of people understand this. When you sign the petition, doesn't mean you're saying, yes, I want that. You're just saying, I want the chance to decide.
Yeah, I want the facts, and I want to know. I want the facts. I want to figure out if this is something that makes sense for me or not. That's all.
That allows the voters of Ohio to decide, and the citizens. Awesome. Well, Beth, listen, I know you're really busy. You're obviously trying to collect 600,000 signatures, which that sounds like a monumental task, but I'm sure you're going to be successful. And I hope people watching this will reach out and certainly help you hit your goal. So,
I hope so.
We're appreciative, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot today from our conversation.
Thanks so much. reformpropertytax.com.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Beth.